Part 1. The Grand Assembly Chamber on the moon Kethra 9 was never quiet. Even during recess, the low hum of translators, the rustle of diplomatic robes, and the occasional burst of heated debate filled the vast dome. Species from every corner of the galaxy gathered here, some with scales, some with feathers, some with skin that shimmered like liquid metal. They argued over trade routes, disputed border claims, and sometimes, when the mood was right, shared stories of their homeworlds. But on this day, the noise had stopped. Not because of an order or a signal. It had stopped because of a human. President Daniel Hayes stood at the central podium, his dark suit slightly wrinkled from the long jump through hyperspace. He was not a tall man nor particularly imposing, but his presence carried weight. Earth had been part of the Galactic Concordance for 112 years. In that time, humans had gone from newcomers with primitive fusion drives to respected members who built faster-than-light relays and designed medical nanites that saved millions across species lines. They were odd, yes, prone to sarcasm, emotional outbursts, and strange holidays involving grilled meat, but they were reliable. Or so everyone thought. Hayes cleared his throat. The silence deepened. Every eye, every lens, every sensory appendage in the chamber turned toward him. Effective immediately, he began, his voice calm but firm. The United Earth Coalition formally withdraws from all institutions, treaties, and obligations of the Galactic Concordance. A ripple went through the room, not loud, just a collective intake of breath, a flicker of bioluminescence, a soft clatter of chitin. No one shouted. No one moved. They simply stared, stunned. He continued. This decision is final. We will no longer participate in joint military operations, interstellar trade agreements, scientific collaborations, or diplomatic forums. All human representatives will return to Sol space within 72 standard hours. Our colonies will sever non-essential communications. Our fleets will assume defensive posture along our borders. He paused, glancing not at the crowd, but at the star map projected above the chamber, a swirling tapestry of light marking member worlds. Earth's dot, once glowing blue like the others, dimmed as he spoke. We do this not out of hostility, Hayes said, but necessity. The reasons are ours alone. We ask only that you respect our choice. Then he stepped back. No bow, no flourish. Just a quiet nod before walking away, flanked by two aides, Lisa Tran and Ryan Cole, both younger than him, both pale with tension. The doors hissed shut behind them. For a full minute, no one moved. Then the chaos began. Ambassadors scrambled to contact their homeworlds. Translators overloaded, trying to interpret a dozen panicked languages at once. The Vorlax delegate, a towering figure with obsidian skin and 6 eyes, slammed a clawed fist on his console. They cannot just leave, he growled. Not after everything. Across the aisle, Nira Voss of the Kalan Enclave remained still. Her silver robe shimmered faintly as she watched the empty podium. Unlike the others, she did not look angry or confused. She looked worried. Back aboard the human shuttle Horizon, Hayes sat in silence. The ship was small, built for speed, not comfort. Lisa Tran handed him a cup of coffee. Real coffee, not the synthetic paste most ships used. He took it with a tired smile. You think they'll understand? Ryan asked from the co-pilot seat. No, Hayes said, and that's the point. If they understood, they'd panic. And panic spreads faster than any signal we could send. Lisa looked out the viewport. Kethra 9 shrank behind them, its ringed silhouette growing smaller against the starfield. Do you think it's already watching? Hayes didn't answer right away. He sipped his coffee, the steam curling in the low gravity. It's not about watching anymore, he finally said. It's about listening, and we've been too loud for too long. On Earth, news of the withdrawal spread like wildfire. Most citizens had never heard of the Concordance. To them, aliens were either movie monsters or distant trading partners. But when the government announced that all off-world personnel were returning home, that all alien embassies would be closed, and that Earth's borders were now sealed, people felt it. Something had changed. In Chicago, teenager Jake Morales watched the live feed from Kethra 9 on his cracked tablet. His older sister, a linguist stationed on Mars, had just sent a message. Coming home. Don't ask why, just be ready. In Houston, engineer Chris Morgan stood on his porch staring at the night sky. He'd spent 10 years helping design Concordance-compatible engines. Now his work was obsolete. But instead of anger, he felt a strange sense of relief, as if a storm he'd sensed for years was finally arriving. And deep beneath the ice of Europa, in a sealed lab humming with quantum processors, Dr. Elena Ruiz reviewed the latest data stream from the Oort cloud array. The signal was faint, almost lost in cosmic noise, but it was there, a pattern that shouldn't exist. A rhythm that matched no known natural phenomenon. It repeated every 7.3 hours, like a heartbeat. She typed a single line into the secure channel. Phase 1 complete. They're gone. Now we wait. Back on Kethra 9, the assembly remained in emergency session. Proposals flew, sanctions, blockades, even preemptive strikes. But without consensus, nothing could pass. The concordance was built on unity, and unity required trust. And trust, once broken, was hard to rebuild. By the time the human shuttle entered Sol space, every major news outlet in the galaxy was running the same headline in 100 languages. Humanity leaves. No one knew why. No one knew what came next. But as the stars blinked in the endless dark, something else stirred. Something ancient, patient, and hungry. And for the first time in centuries, it had noticed Earth. The galaxy watched in dread as humanity abandoned the assembly. Not because humans were dangerous, but because in leaving they had shown they knew something the rest of the galaxy did not, and that knowledge was far more terrifying than any weapon. Part 2. The silence came first. Not the kind of quiet that follows a storm, but the heavy, unnatural hush of something missing. Across the spiral arms of the galaxy, alien freighters that once docked at human ports now circled empty stations. Trade routes that hummed with cargo haulers fell still. Data streams that linked Earth's research labs to a dozen worlds went dark. It was as if humanity had never been there at all. On the frontier world of Viridia, Lieutenant Chris Morgan stood on the observation deck of Outpost Theta, watching 3 Vorlax patrol ships drift in slow orbit. They hadn't fired a shot. They hadn't even hailed the station. They just watched, waiting, wondering. Chris rubbed his tired eyes. He hadn't slept in 30 hours. Not because of the ships, those were expected, but because of the messages that kept coming in from Earth. Short, encrypted, final. All non-essential personnel recalled. Secure all human assets. Initiate Protocol Veil. He didn't know what Protocol Veil was, but he knew what it meant. No more help was coming. No more supply drops, no backup. Just him, 23 other humans, and a crumbling outpost on the edge of known space. Down in the comms room, Ryan Cole tried one last time to raise Mars Central. Static answered. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his messy hair. They really did it, he muttered. They cut us off. Nearby, Lisa Tran worked silently, dismantling a concordant surveillance drone that had drifted too close. Its lens was cracked, its power cord drained. She pried open the casing with a screwdriver, her fingers moving with practiced ease. They're not trying to spy, she said without looking up. They're scared. They want to know why we left, and we can't tell them, Ryan replied. No, Lisa said, because if they knew, they'd either call us liars or start running. Back on Mars, the red dust settled over empty streets. The human colony, once bustling with scientists, engineers, and diplomats from a dozen species, was now a ghost town. Alien envoys had packed up and left within days of Earth's announcement. Now only humans remained, working in hushed tones, moving through sealed corridors, eyes always on the sky. In a sub-level lab beneath Olympus Mons, Dr. Elena Ruiz studied the latest readings from the outer system. The anomaly, still nameless, still unexplained, was growing. Not in size, but in presence. It didn't emit energy. It didn't warp gravity. It simply altered perception. Ships that passed too close reported time distortions. Sensors glitched. Crews heard voices that weren't there. One freighter from the Silthari Collective vanished near Neptune. Its last transmission was just static, and a single word in perfect human English. Listen. Elena didn't sleep much anymore. She drank bitter tea and stared at star charts, tracing lines between dead zones. She knew the concordance was watching Earth, but they were looking in the wrong direction. The threat wasn't coming from Sol. It was coming from beyond. And humanity had pulled back not to hide, but to prepare. On Titan, young pilot Jake Morales stood on the hangar deck of the orbital defense platform, Aurora. Around him, crews worked on sleek black frigates unlike anything the Concordance had ever seen. No bright markings, no communication arrays, Just smooth hulls, silent engines, and sensor baffles that made them nearly invisible. These weren't warships. They were watchers. Jake ran his hand along the side of Frigate 7. "They say we're not supposed to engage," he said to his flight instructor, Captain Olivia Grant. "Just observe." Olivia nodded. She was in her late 30s with sharp eyes and a voice that never rose above a calm murmur. "Our job isn't to fight," she said. "It's to see what's coming before it sees us." "But what if it already has?" Jake asked. Olivia didn't answer. She just looked up at the stars, her expression unreadable. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, fear turned to anger. The Vorlax hegemony declared Earth a rogue species. The Silthari collective froze all human-linked financial assets. Even neutral systems began expelling human traitors. Rumors spread like fire through data nets. Some said Earth had built a weapon that could erase stars. Others claimed humans had made a pact with an ancient enemy of the Concordance. A few whispered that humanity had gone mad, that their rapid evolution had finally broken their minds. Only Ambassador Nira Voss spoke against the tide. At an emergency session on the Concordance homeworld of Xylos, she stood before the High Council and said, "Humans do not act without reason. If they have hidden themselves, it is because they believe the alternative is worse than isolation." The Council scoffed. "Worse than abandoning peace? Worse than betraying trust?" asked the Vorlax representative. Nira met his gaze. "Worse than extinction." Her words hung in the air, heavy and cold. No one laughed. No one argued. They simply filed out in silence, each carrying the same chilling thought. What if she's right? On Earth, cities dimmed their lights. Satellites powered down. All civilian space traffic ceased. The planet turned inward, not out of shame, but strategy. In underground bunkers, children practiced emergency drills. In orbital shipyards, workers welded final seams on massive resonator rings. And in command centers buried beneath mountains, generals and scientists watched the same data stream, waiting for the first real sign that the drift had reached their doorstep. Back on Viridia, Chris Morgan finally got a message through. Not from Earth, from Titan. It was short, coded, and carried no signature. Just coordinates and a timestamp. He showed it to Lisa. "They want us to leave," she said. "Not yet," Chris replied. "We stay until the last ship is gone. Until the last alien freighter gives up and flies home. And then we vanish too." That night, as the twin moons of Viridia rose over the desert, the last human outpost powered down its external lights. One by one, the beacons went dark. The comms array folded into the ground. The landing pads retracted. To any observer, Outpost Theta looked abandoned, dead, but inside, hearts still beat. Minds still worked. And eyes still watched the stars, not with fear, but with purpose. The galaxy thought humanity had turned its back. But the truth was simpler. Humanity had turned its face toward the dark, so the rest of the galaxy wouldn't have to. And in that silence, in that stillness, they waited for the thing that listened to show itself. Part 3. Rumors spread faster than light. In the markets of Xylos, traders whispered that Earth had uncovered a weapon so terrible it could unmake reality. On the ice plains of Virel, scholars argued that humanity had been corrupted by a long-buried alien intelligence. Even in the quiet temples of the Kalan Enclave, monks debated whether humans had seen the end of time and chosen to face it alone. But none of them were right. The truth was stranger, quieter, and far more human. Deep in the Oort cloud, where the sun was just a pale star and comets drifted like forgotten memories, Project Aegis hummed to life. It was not a weapon. It was not a ship. It was a shield, woven from quantum threads and powered by entangled particles that defied distance and time. Its purpose was simple: to make Sol invisible, not just hidden from sensors or cloaked from view, but erased from the awareness of something that did not see with eyes or hear with ears. Dr. Elena Ruiz stood in the control hub of Station Helios, her fingers hovering over the final activation sequence. Around her, engineers moved in silence. No alarms, no countdowns. Just the soft glow of monitors and the low thrum of cooling systems. She thought of her niece back on Earth, who had asked her last week, "Are we hiding from monsters?" Elena had said no, but she wasn't sure anymore. "We're not hiding," she told herself now. "We're protecting." The data had come in fragments over 3 years. First a glitch in deep space telescopes near the galactic core, then strange echoes in neutrino streams. Finally, the signal from Neptune's edge, a repeating pattern that matched no known physics. It wasn't a message. It was a presence, like a shadow passing over a thought. The team called it the drift, not because it moved through space, but because it moved through understanding, eroding it, distorting it, leaving minds hollow. Humans weren't the first to notice. Ancient ruins on dead worlds hinted at others who had tried to fight it, or flee it. All had failed. But humanity had one advantage: they didn't try to destroy it. They tried to disappear. On Mars, Lisa Tran reviewed the final schematics for the resonator network. Each node, placed at Lagrange points across the solar system, would generate a field that bent not light but attention. The drift didn't track ships or planets. It tracked patterns, civilizations, signals, the hum of thought. By silencing that hum, Earth hoped to become noiseless, uninteresting, forgotten. Ryan Cole stood beside her, arms crossed. "Do you think it'll work?" "It has to," Lisa said, "because if it doesn't, there won't be anyone left to ask why." Back on Earth, President Daniel Hayes walked through an empty park in Denver. The trees were green, the air clean, children played in the distance. Normal life. But he knew it was borrowed time. Every day they delayed activation was another day the drift might notice them. Yet rushing could alert the concordance, or worse, draw the drift's gaze sooner. He stopped by a bench and sat. A dog trotted over, tail wagging. Hayes scratched its ears and smiled. "You don't know what's coming," he said softly. "And I hope you never have to." Meanwhile, on Titan, Captain Olivia Grant briefed her pilots. "Your mission hasn't changed," she said, her voice steady. "Patrol the outer rim. Watch for anomalies. If you see anything unusual, any distortion, any silence where there should be noise, you retreat. No heroics. No questions. Just get back." Jake Morales raised his hand. "What if it follows us?" Olivia looked at him for a long moment. "Then we'll know it's already too late." In the Concordance capital, panic turned to desperation. The Xanthari system had gone dark. Not just communications, everything. No heat signatures. No orbital debris. Just empty space where a thriving colony had been. Scans showed no explosion, no weapon residue, no signs of war. It was as if the system had been edited out. Ambassador Neera Voss stood before the High Council again, this time holding a data crystal. "This came from a human source," she said. "Anonymous. Unverified. But it matches our own readings from Xanthari." She played the file. It showed waveforms, equations, and a single line of text. "It doesn't destroy. It unmakes." The council fell silent. Even the Vorlax delegate looked shaken. "Why would humans send this?" someone asked. "Because they're not our enemy," Neera said. "They're our warning," but trust was thin. Some called it a trick. Others said Earth was trying to scare the Concordance into submission. Only a few, scientists, historians, those who remembered the old ruins, understood the truth. Humanity hadn't abandoned the galaxy. They had sounded an alarm no one knew how to hear. On Viridia, Chris Morgan prepared the last shuttle. The outpost was empty now. All personnel evacuated. He stood in the command center one last time, looking at the star map on the wall. Earth's dot was gone, not turned off but removed. As if it had never existed. He tapped his comm. "Morgan to horizon. Ready for final departure." "Copy that," came the reply. "Welcome home." As the shuttle lifted off, Chris looked down at the red sands below. He wondered if anyone would ever return. He wondered if there would be a Viridia to return to. Back at Station Helios, Elena gave the order. "Initiate Aegis." One by one, the resonators activated. A soft pulse rippled through the solar system. Not energy, not sound, but something deeper. Like a breath held. Like a name unspoken. On Earth, lights flickered for a second. Birds stopped singing. Then everything returned to normal. But something had changed. To the outside universe, Sewell was no longer a beacon of life. It was just another patch of empty space. In the dark between stars, the drift paused. It had been moving toward the bright, noisy cluster of human signals. Now that cluster was gone. Confused, it turned elsewhere, toward the next brightest hum. Toward the Xanthari system, toward the heart of the Concordance. Humanity hadn't run. They had stepped aside. And in doing so, they had bought the galaxy time. Not much, but enough. Elena looked out the viewport at the endless black. "We did what we could," she whispered. And for the first time in months, she let herself hope. Part 4. The Xanthari system did not explode. It did not collapse into a black hole or vanish in a flash of light. It simply stopped being. One moment it was a thriving hub of trade and culture, home to over 2 billion beings across 7 inhabited worlds. The next it was empty. No wreckage, no distress calls, no echoes, just silence where life had once sung. The Concordance sent probe after probe. All returned with the same result, nothing. Not even dust remained. It was as if the system had never existed at all. Panic spread like wildfire through the galactic networks. The Vorlax hegemony mobilized its entire fleet not to attack but to defend. The Silthari Collective shut down all long-range communications, fearing that signals might draw the same fate. Even the peaceful Kalan Enclave began evacuating outer colonies. For the first time in centuries, the Concordance faced a threat it could not name, could not fight, and could not understand. Only Ambassador Nira Voss held onto a sliver of calm. She stood before the Emergency Council once more, this time holding the human data packet like a sacred text. "This is not random," she said. "It follows a pattern. It seeks awareness. It feeds on complexity, and it is drawn to noise." The Vorlax delegate scoffed. "You speak like a mystic, not a diplomat." "I speak like someone who listened," Nira replied. "While the rest of you called humans traitors, they were watching. While you debated sanctions, they built a shield. And now, while you mourn Xanthari, they are still watching." She played the latest transmission from the edge of Sol space, a short burst of data sent on an old emergency frequency. It contained no words, only coordinates, sensor logs, and a single schematic. A resonator node, simple in design, built from common materials. "Anyone with basic engineering knowledge could replicate it. They're showing us how to hide," Nira said softly. The council chamber fell silent. Even the skeptics looked shaken. If humans had truly found a way to vanish without a trace, then perhaps there was hope. But hope required trust, and trust had been broken long ago. On Earth, life continued in quiet rhythm. Cities ran on reduced power. Air traffic was limited. Spaceports stood empty. But beneath the surface, humanity worked harder than ever. In hidden labs and orbital factories, teams refined the Aegis network, strengthening the veil around Sol. Dr. Elena Ruiz barely left Station Helios. She slept in her chair, ate at her console, and spoke only when necessary. Her eyes were tired, but her hands were steady. Lisa Tran and Ryan Cole coordinated with colonies across the system, ensuring every human outpost on Mars, Europa, Titan, even distant Ceres, was fully integrated into the shield. No signal leaked. No light escaped. Earth had become a ghost, not out of fear, but out of duty. On Titan, Captain Olivia Grant reviewed patrol reports. Frigate 3 had detected a faint distortion near the Kuiper Belt, like a ripple in still water. It lasted less than a second, but it was enough. "It's testing the edges," she told Jake Morales during a quiet moment in the hangar. "It knows something's missing." Jake tightened a bolt on his fighter's wing. "Do you think it'll find us?" "Not if we stay silent," Olivia said. "Not if we stay still." But staying still was hard when the galaxy was screaming. Back in the Concordance capital, the debate raged. Some worlds wanted to build their own shields using the human schematics. Others feared it was a trap, a way for Earth to lure them into dependence. A few even suggested attacking Sol just to force humanity back into the fold. Nira argued tirelessly. "They gave us a gift," she said. "Not weapons, not lies. A chance." Finally, the Kalan Enclave took the first step. They began constructing a resonator node near their homeworld. The Silthari followed. Then the smaller systems, desperate for any protection. Only the Vorlax held back, their pride too heavy to accept help from those they once called cowards. Meanwhile, on Viridia, now officially abandoned, Chris Morgan's old outpost sat dark and cold. But deep in its sublevels, a single backup server powered on. It had been left behind on purpose, programmed to wake only if a specific signal passed nearby. That signal came 3 weeks after Xanthari fell. The server sent one message, short and unencrypted, beam toward every major Concordance world. "It's moving toward you. Build the nodes, now. No signature, no explanation, just truth." On Mars, Lisa watched the transmission go out. "They'll either listen or they won't," she said. Ryan nodded. "Either way, we did our part." In Earth's command bunker, President Hayes received a report from the Outer Rim. The drift had shifted course. It was no longer drifting randomly. It was heading straight for the heart of the concordance, the densely populated core systems where billions lived, worked, and dreamed. Hayes closed his eyes. He had hoped the shield would buy more time, but time was a luxury the galaxy could no longer afford. Send the full package, he ordered. Everything. Schematics, power requirements, calibration codes. Broadcast it on every open channel. Let them all see. And so, from the silent heart of Sol, humanity spoke one last time, not with words of apology or warning, but with blueprints for survival. Across the galaxy, engineers studied the files. Scientists ran simulations. Leaders made choices. Some called it madness, others called it mercy. But all of them understood one thing. Earth had not abandoned them. They had stepped into the storm so the rest could find shelter. As the first alien-built resonator flickered to life near Xylos, a faint hum filled the void. A new kind of silence woven not by humans but inspired by them. And in that moment, the galaxy began to learn what humanity already knew. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is disappear. Part 5. The message came from the edge of nothing. Not from a ship, not from a station, not from any known source. It appeared on every open channel in every language, even those not yet spoken. Just 3 words, repeated once, then gone. We're still here. It was signed by Captain Olivia Grant of the Earth Defense Fleet. Attached were files, raw sensor logs, predictive models, and full schematics for the resonator nodes that cloaked Sol. No demands, no conditions, just help, offered freely to a galaxy that had called humanity traitors, cowards, and liars. On Xylos, Ambassador Nira Voss was the first to receive it. She stood in her private chamber, tears in her eyes as she read the data. Around her, the city buzzed with fear. Evacuation orders had been issued for the inner districts. Families packed what they could. But now, with this transmission, something shifted. Not just in strategy, but in spirit. They never left us, she whispered. Across the concordance, the reaction was slow at first. Many thought it was a trick. Others believed it was too late. But as the drift drew closer, its presence now distorting space near the Lyra Nexus, desperation turned to action. Engineers on a dozen worlds began building the human-designed nodes. The Kalan Enclave shared materials with former rivals. Even the Vorlax, pride wounded but survival instinct stronger, activated their first shield prototype over their capital moon. On Earth, no one celebrated. There was no victory in giving a warning, only relief that someone might listen. Dr. Elena Ruiz watched the galactic news feeds from Station Helios. She saw alien hands assembling human designs, heard alien voices speaking human equations. It felt strange, like watching a dream. They're learning, she said to no one in particular. Lisa Tran and Ryan Cole monitored the outer veil. The drift had passed Neptune's orbit now, moving steadily toward the bright core of the concordance. But thanks to the resonators, its path was no longer straight. It hesitated. It circled. It searched for the noise it once knew, and found only silence. On Titan, Jake Morales sat in the cockpit of his frigate waiting. His orders hadn't changed. Watch, report, retreat if needed. But something in him had changed. He no longer feared the dark. He understood it now. And in that understanding, he found calm. Captain Olivia Grant stood on the command deck of the Aurora, looking at the star map. Earth's dot was still missing. But new dots were appearing, faint, flickering, but growing. Each one a world choosing to hide not out of shame but wisdom. They're following our lead, she said. Back on Mars, President Daniel Hayes walked through an empty plaza in New Shanghai Colony. The air was thin, the sky red, but the streets were clean, the lights on. Life continued, quietly, carefully. A child ran past, laughing, chasing a floating drone shaped like a bird. Hayes smiled. This was why they had done it. Not for glory, not for power. For moments like this, small, ordinary, precious. The drift reached the Lyra Nexus 3 weeks later. Once a bustling crossroads of trade and travel, Lyra now hummed with the soft energy of newly built resonators. The drift circled it for hours, probing, testing, but the signals were gone. The thoughts were muffled. The pattern it sought, civilization in full voice, was silent. Then it moved on. Not destroyed. Not defeated. Just redirected, like a predator losing the scent of its prey. In the Concordance capital, the news spread like dawn after a long night. Lyra was safe. The drift had passed. Cheers erupted in the streets, but the leaders knew better than to celebrate too soon. The threat wasn't gone. It was just looking elsewhere, and that was when they truly understood what humanity had done. Earth hadn't hidden to save itself. It had hidden to teach the galaxy how to survive. Months passed. The resonator network grew. More worlds joined. Even former enemies shared data, resources, and hope. The Concordance, once fractured by suspicion, began to heal, not through treaties, but through shared fear and shared purpose. Then, one quiet evening, another message came from Soul Space. Short, clear, final. The shield holds. Stay silent. Stay safe, no signature this time. Just the truth. On Earth, children returned to school. Farmers planted crops under open skies. Artists painted. Musicians played. Life did not stop, it adapted. Humanity had chosen solitude not as punishment, but as protection. And in that choice, they had become something new. Not just a species, but a guardian. In the outer dark, the drift wandered, lost in a galaxy that had learned to whisper instead of shout. It would return. It always did. But next time, the galaxy would be ready, and somewhere, in the quiet between stars, a human frigate drifted on silent engines, watching, waiting, listening, not for the drift, but for the moment the galaxy no longer needed them to stand guard. The stars did not shine brighter that night, but they felt closer, as if for the first time in a long time the universe was holding its breath together, and in that shared silence, hope lived.